Welcome back, Nerdiverse, for another episode of MOTN Reviews, where we take a film plucked from the Nerdiverse at any point in time and give you our verdict and a complete breakdown of this film and where it ranks amongst the Nerdiverse itself. I'm, of course, your host, Mike G. Back with me is my astute panel of Boondock Saints themselves. Let's just do a quick introductions all around. Starting top of the page, the lucky Irishman himself, Wash. What's going on, sir?
Hello. There is no whiskey in here, and I will probably never be considered for sainthood. But I am happy to be here on this podcast today. So thanks for
You,
having me, and I'm ready to talk justice.
you and me both, brother. Sainthood? Nah, maybe the other one. And with us today is Our Lady of Saints herself, Santa Toots. What's going on, Santa Toots?
Yay. A little bit racist, but I'll take it. I love it. Hi. Hola.
¿Cómo estás ustedes?
Biblioteca.
Biblioteca. I was trying to be culturally appropriate. Oh, God. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, you're good.
Oh,
You're good.
man. Can I be Santa Mike? Or Santa
Yeah, be
Mike?
Santo Mike. Well,
I don't,
there is already a Saint Michael, so you're in. You're in the club.
nice. Let's talk
Yeah.
about these saints, these men of mystery here in this movie, which I would truly think is one of the very first cult classics of the late '90s, early 2000s, and that's 1999's own Boondock Saints. I didn't realize this came out the same year as The Matrix, yo. That's kind of crazy to year to be floating around.
I thought it was earlier than
Me
99.
too. I thought it was like
So
95,
yeah,
94.
I was a bit surprised when I saw that 99 pop up, but then I was like, yeah, all right, I guess that makes some sense because, they weren't making this back in 94 necessarily. Not this not this type of movie.
No, and just I guess we can just go right into it and go into our initial thoughts. Where were you in 1999 when this came out? Did you catch this later in life? I'm just curious. Where were you?
That was Dancing the Princess 1999. What's that jam? Dun, dun, dun.
The
The party, yeah, yeah, yeah,
2000
yeah,
party
yeah,
over. Ooh,
yeah, I
child,
was,
night
child.
time.
I was getting ready to jam to that, but that's what I was doing. Yeah, no, I just remember this being one of those movies. I know it was in the middle of my heyday of, watching weird movies, having cocktails with friends and things of that nature. It's just one of those ones that you put on and it's like, oh, what are we watching? Oh, this is kind of cool. Second viewing? Actually, it's probably third viewing now because I haven't seen it in God, 10, 15 years. So it's been a minute. And, this viewing, I'm a tad older, so opinions are a tad different, but still, good movie. Can't complain.
Very good, very good. What about you, Toots? Where were you when you first saw The Saints of Boondock?
Where were you?
Where
So
were
this movie
you?
came out in 99, as you said, and I kind of saw it almost immediately when it came out because I thought it the concept was amazing to me. um yeah, I thought it was a really good movie. I was really happy. I'm always really happy to see movies that look potentially amazing with no name actors, and at the time all of these actors were no name actors to me with the exception of the director, Troy Duffy. So I remember seeing this fairly early on, never understanding that it was a cult classic. In my opinion, I thought it did very well in the theaters because everybody that I saw the movie with enjoyed the movie. This time around, and again, like Brian, I saw it fairly recently. And again, it used to be one of those movies that I would watch a lot. I mean, Mikey, we've probably watched it a handful of times just because we were bored. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, it's a movie that was on repeat constantly because it's such a good movie. Um, anyway, I watched it today. Just well, for the theme of the holiday, given that it's around St. Patty's Day, blah blah blah, and of course we're doing this review. So this movie, believe it or not, here may be a hot take, but I think this movie would still hold up today in a lot of ways. I know we'll get there. Um, Minus a few cringy scenes, like very small snippets and clips of scenes, minus just a little bit of the 90s cringe. But man, this movie would hold up in a lot of ways. Structurally, it's very sound.
Yeah,
So yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
absolutely. I definitely agree with both of you. Like, definitely a time and a place in a movie that I feel could stand the test of time even today, just giving its social and its kind of proclivities, I would say, that we'll talk about later. But yeah, for me, I saw this way later in life. I saw this with, I think you introduced me to this one, Toots. It's just one of those movies that was in your rotation. It just happened to be on in the background. And I paid attention a little too hard one time. I was like, this is pretty freaking dope. It's almost in a weird way, like a comic book movie in a weird way, because you just kind
Oh, I
of,
can't wait to
and,
talk about that.
and we'll go into that. But yeah, I would. This was one of those movies that was just on in the background all the time, like this and The Big Lebowski, and just like in your late, early to mid 20s. You know what I mean? All angsty, and I want to be a saint. You know what I
I
mean?
gotta tell you, I haven't had a cigarette in friggin', I don't know, 15, two decades. But man, I was about 15 minutes into this movie and I was like, is there a freaking cigarette
Makes you want
around
to
here
smoke,
anywhere,
doesn't it?
man?
I want to talk about that too.
So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, man, this movie, and I just want to talk about like this next slide. I call it the little movie that could, because this was one of those movies that really felt like it was just had just the underdog the entire time. It was. I remember hearing it had a lofty like production schedule. As Toots alluded to, there are no known actors in this film outside of like Willem Dafoe, and this was Norman Reedus' first film, I believe. He was like um found by Duffy and by just the crew. So I would like to get you guys' idea of like just the origins of this movie, kind of how it all came together, and even touching a bit on just the atmosphere. One thing I love about this movie is you really feel like you're there. You know what I mean? So I just love the exact kind of like atmosphere it builds, and I love the story behind this movie. It's a very kind of like broody, almost like story to me.
Tudor, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I kind of want to talk about the director himself. Uh,
There you go.
if you really think about it, Troy Duffy had you can kind of almost tell where his inspirations were coming from, where he was kind of soaking up all these different ideas. There's some Scorsese in his movies, tons of Tarantino in his movies. Um, just the only thing I would say that I think is a little bit weak, but that he was not very confident in as far as making the movie is the dialogue. The dialogue. Um, I think it was trying a little bit too hard to be a little bit too casual. While it worked in most cases, especially with the character Rocco, who is a fascinating character to me. Um, I think there's pockets of it that were just a little bit overexposed, like a little bit too on the nose, like almost like it's a stage play, almost like he was writing dialogue for a stage play. No, don't do that. That's not how you do that. Anyway, just very like focused on exactly what's going on in the scene as opposed to just a casual conversation that's happening. I think that's where all the cringe comes in. Um like the like, oh, there's crime everywhere and nobody's taking care of it or whatever they were saying. It's like Mike was saying, is a little comic booky, a little bit, there's a little bit of camp involved in such a serious, such a very realistic movie otherwise. But yeah, it made me really understand and realize that Troy Duffy's actually a pretty damn good director. Um, I always thought that he was in the movie, but it turns out there is a gentleman that plays him in the movie. There's a detective named Detective Duffy, and I always just assumed it was Troy Duffy himself, but it's not. Turns out. Um, but yeah, I that's what I'm saying. Like, I really think this movie would hold up today in a lot of ways because there's still surprise elements to it. There's surprise elements, and then the fact that Willem Dafoe was the most perfect casting, and that he captivated almost every scene that he was in. Um, and he was still very ambiguous, you know, in a lot of ways. There's a lot of questions around Willem Dafoe, which I know we're probably going to get to. Um, but yeah, yeah, this movie is definitely the little movie that could, and it probably should have. I think you just mentioned that this movie came out about the same time as Matrix. Probably would have done a little bit better had Matrix not come out the same year.
Exactly.
Yes, and there's a tad bit of background on that. I was doing a little bit of research. Apparently, Columbine was this year too, and so they pulled back on the release of it, and thus it was only played in a limited amount of theaters because of the nature of the violence of the time and Columbine. I'm sure we all remember, and
Oh
thus it only
shit.
made $30,000 its opening like box office weekend. As far as like the little movie that could, what I can say is I do distinctly remember watching the trailer and seeing the trailer since then multiple times. You know what I mean? Just in pop culture, and it, you. It's distinctly not the movie you think it is because you think it's some type of mob movie, right? You see the jackets, you see the smoking, and like even as you're watching the movie ends up being something very different than what it is portrayed, especially for that time period of 99 when we're definitely coming off of, popular things like Goodfellas, freaking see, whatever that movie was. I know someone here knows that. Bronx Tale, things of that nature. Yeah, shout out Bronx Tale, and things of that nature. So, it for it to not only turn out to be the movie it is, but to carry the legs to become that cult classic. That's pretty impressive on the cover of what is a weird a weird movie for the premise of it all. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, this movie, uh, just to go back to my original point of it feeling comic booky, it even has stills where when a character's introduced, it freeze frames and gives you a comic book panel of who that person is, their allegiances, and their like occupation. This is Rocco. He works for this family. He's a
Their real
enforcer.
name, their nickname. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super comic booky,
Yeah.
right? And it gives me like vibes of. It reminds me of like great directors' first films. It reminds me of Reservoir Dogs. It reminds me of like Raging Bull, where it's just so raw
Yeah.
that there, like you could see the unfiltered id of this director. And like Toot said, it does come off cringy in some parts where certain characters are cartoonishly comic booky. Like the quote unquote main villain of the film is cartoonishly Italian. And you know what I mean? Just, oh, they cool, oh, he's just so
Little fuck. Yeah.
little, you
All of that.
insignificant little fuck.
Insignificante. Yeah.
He's so over the top. It's
but he
like,
got business done, which
oh, he
is
was the
something I
man.
appreciated. I was
Yeah.
like, as a mob boss, like you could put him in rooms.
Oh, we lost. Oh, we
We
lost.
lost Brian for a
We lost
second.
Brian for
He'll
a
be
second.
back.
He will be back,
He was making
but
such a good point.
he'll be back. He'll be
There
making
he
such a good
is.
point.
Yay. Hi.
There he
There
is.
he
Okay,
is.
hold on. Let me get him back. Let
Okay.
me get Washington back. Show stream. Perfect. You're back up, sir. You've returned.
Uh,
Carry on.
Carry on.
So yes, yeah, I thought the mob boss was pretty. He was a mob boss. He did his job, which you don't really expect to see him getting his hands dirty.
Yeah, man. It's like
Spoiler
e-
alert.
even
That's true too.
yes. There's only one thing to do, and even characters like
Like,
it's like so nonchalant about it, right? And these characters like Rocco, who Toots mentioned, is just so over the top. So it's very reminds me of almost like Dick Tracy was like an inspiration for this movie.
what I think is ironic that you said that is when I was watching it this time, I was like, man, I wonder if there. I didn't think it felt like a comic book movie, but I was thinking in the back of my head as I am extended universe, as we all know, and I'm like, I wonder if someone's ever made like a comic off
I
of
think
this or
so.
like a graphic novel based off the Saints, because
I hope.
I would
Yeah.
imagine that
I
somewhere
was
out
gonna check
there.
it out. In full disclosure, I did not get a chance to, but yes, I thought, yeah, it lends itself well.
Yeah, and just to kind of put a sticker on this particular slide, yeah, this little movie that could, you mentioned that it came out in a tumultuous time where the Columbine shootings happened, and what were they influenced by? Trench coated black wearing Avengers. May it be the Matrix or even this movie may have had a small part in that. And, just that inspiration. Because it was the coolest thing ever. It was transcendent. Like this time of, on the cusp of the millennium. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on.
There was
during
a
this
lot,
time
dude.
frame.
Y2K, you had Prince,
Y2K,
like, there
you
was
know,
just a lot going
changing
on.
his name. The
Getting
chalupa,
jiggy with it,
the
like
chalupa.
the,
Remember when the chalupa came out?
the chalupa, yeah. I mean,
Changed
none
my
of that
life.
has anything to do with this.
No, it has everything to do with.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think this movie has a lot of. It's very raw. I think that's where my most thing is the little movie that could, and you can see his genius. And some would say this is his first and best movie, Troy Duffy. You know what I mean? Just because it's so him, and he just puts a lot of himself into it. But I would like to talk about the calm before the storm. About this, and the storm could be figuratively, meaning the storm that transformed them into the saints, and just the calm before the storm, meaning in going into the plot. Whereas we get our intro to these characters, and it's so comic booky, where it's like these are normal guys who are just in a pub in Boston who find themselves in an abnormal situation. And I just love this setup and scene where it's the alley scene where Detective Duffy is talking out of the side of his neck. And this is the perfect introduction to William Dafoe's character. And I just want to get you guys' feelings on the start of this movie and finding out they know 17 different languages. And these guys are just kind of low-key superhuman. And then even amplified to that after the events of their night in jail. So just want to get you guys' thoughts on the beginning of this film.
Well, I like how you call it an ordinary or what I you said something else, so I got scrambled. But you called it kind of like, yeah, a couple of guys hanging out. Hey, man, it's an Irish bar. They close all the doors, put the close sign on, and there's 17 Irish dudes sitting at a bar. I don't consider that to be an ordinary situation. And in fact, if I found myself in that situation, I'd probably be like, man, should I be leaving right now? So, I don't know how innocent these group of dudes just hanging out having a couple of beers are to begin with. But to your point, to calm me for the storm, sure, out having a good time.
Well, things didn't get cracking until the stupid Russians came in and starts waving their dicks around, and that's when it went clink clink. They're about to start partying. Everything
Well,
else was
again,
chill after that. Before that,
you have to. Why? They're coming in to close the bar, like, they
yeah.
don't back down at all. It's not like they're, oh God, sir, please no, we really don't want any trouble here today. It's like,
Now let's
yeah, what
go.
are you doing? Blink
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
It's shot. So
I get you. It's just the
again,
introduction. It's
not
very
the
interesting.
movie I thought it was going to be as you watch it, because as you watch it, it's a mob movie. You know what I mean? It's a crew, and it's not that.
At all. What are your thoughts, Toots?
I found the beginning of the movie to be extremely endearing. It gives you a huge glimpse into characters that you're going to get to know and that you're not going to want to lose at the end of the movie. He pulls that off fairly quickly, with our three main characters being Rocco, and the Mc whatever brothers. McDoyle. They're not McDoyle. That's totally
McManus.
wrong.
McManus.
McManus
Oh,
brothers.
Doyle rules, by the
There
way,
we
just so
go.
you know.
Oh, Doyle
Oh,
rules.
Doyle rules, by the way. Just
Anyway, but yes, I think that was a good move to make us fall in love with these people, because eventually we have to understand and decide that, hey, you know what, they keep doing it though. So then it puts us into a position of, are we still innocent if we're condoning their killing? I think the same works for, shows like Dexter, and it works obviously for um the superhero formula. When it comes to comic books, they're constantly, most of them are having to kill somebody in order to save somebody else. And it really drives a stick into our own morality through it. And and that, it doesn't have to be that deep all the time, but honestly I think that was probably one of the purposes of this movie, and one of the drives, which is why the calm before the storm was so endearing. They were very charming, very enjoyable, very low key and relaxed. Like you said, they didn't they didn't start amok until the Russians came in, and even when the Russians came in, they were
they were
they were
still
just like,
chill.
bro, just chill. It's St. Patty's Day. Like, come on, we're hanging out. They were given chances, and I'm to believe that they were given chances because the brothers already knew the power of their own strength easily.
Very good call out. Yeah, and it's so you just don't know. They blend the line so well of the natural and the supernatural in this movie. That's one big stickler I want to talk about is how much of this movie is actually supernatural because until the baptism scene where they're in the jail cells, what they're doing is very kind of plausible, but not at the same time. Like they were still busted. Like when the older brother lifted the toilet out of its stalk with his arms, dragged it to the top of the roof, and dropped it after being beat up or whatever. It's like that's not human. That's some Winter Soldier shit. What's going on with these guys? So did they
Oh,
have
it's
you know
determined.
extremely determined? That's some determination, bro. And it's like, what are these guys, right? It just makes you question it the entire time. And the beginning of this film, like Toots was saying, it makes you love them. They're so funny and charming, and the meatpacking scene, rule of thumb. You know what I mean? It makes you root for these guys, and it also gives you stakes really early. Like I don't want nothing could happen to these boys. I will riot if anything happens to these guys, and it makes you feel that immediately. So when you see the aftermath of what really happened in that alley, you start questioning like they were way too chill with those giant threatening gangsters in the beginning of the film. Like Watch was saying, there's something not right about this squad. You know what I mean? They weren't like, please sir, we don't want any trouble. They were like, shots, lock the door, clink clink. All right, it's party time. And they made short work of those guys in seconds. You know what I mean? Had burnt one guy's ass on the table, still kept partying. You know what I mean? Like there's something
When
up with these saints, man.
Cause I'm trying to remember when things got really, really like messed up in my head, and it's like when they went into the church, and like everybody's watching
Like
them
people
in the
knew.
church, and like they go and they walk
Like
out,
spit it
and
to
it's like,
Santi.
was that near the beginning of the film?
That was at the because that's when back to Toots is
That's
That's
the
kind of
right.
intro.
that's Toots is
That's the intro.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, when you talk about the calm before the storm, it's like who imagine you're sitting in church, you're minding your business. It's Sunday, it's Friday, whenever you go to church, Wednesday night, I don't know, right? But two dudes in suit in black leather like come walking in behind the priest like some holy water themselves, walk on out, and it's like, who does that?
You know who these guys are? They're the Punisher, right? You airdrop the Punisher in the real world, and this is this movie. Like you said, same scenario. You're at church, you mind your business, and Frank Castle walks in, like just full of what the kids called aura, just aura farming the hell out of the situation, right? The pastor says, "Chill, let them do their thing. We don't want no smoke." And Frank Castle goes with there, gives his Hail Marys, and rolls out. Like these guys were problems before the Russians showed up and started trouble. I think is your point, and I agree with you, Wash. And it's
And yeah, when you talked about calm before the storm, I did want to bring that up because that was for me when I saw that. It's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do
you
that at
poke the bear.
church. You know what I mean? Like if there's like talking in church is one thing, you know what I mean? You may look at your phone, but no, getting up and walking behind the priest,
No,
you
they're
probably don't want to do that.
turbo Catholics, Doug. They're Super Saiyan
So
Catholics, right?
Yeah. They are extreme Catholic. Yeah, for sure.
it's funny.
Turbo Catholics.
Absolutely.
So
I think they're I think the way they went in for some reason was justified for the congregation because in a sense nobody seemed to bat an eye with the exception of the priest because the priest seemed to understand like, all right, well, here they come, here's those hoodlums, but also here they come and I can't do anything about
I
it.
I just can't do anything about
You
it
know, I
because
just can't do anything about it. They're going to be rude and interrupt the service, but really what they're doing is they're still they're giving their alms. You know, they're paying their blessings to God. You know, as any good Christian would do. So what do you say to that? What do you say to that? No, you can't do that here. Like if I mean you can't. So not only was the priest's hands tied in that situation, but at the same time, why would anybody morally who's morally sound want to do something like that? And again, it
Those
gives
were
question.
sound.
That's what I'm saying. It gives question to understanding, are these boys morally sound? And
No.
okay, and back to your baptism scene, baptism reference, when the boys realize, when when they're in the jail cell, and shepherds we will be for thee, my Lord, for thee, and they have this vivid dream of what they're supposed to do, and a vivid dream of their calling, and they both wake up out of it and they're like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it, we're doing it, let's go. And it seems like, as much as they don't have the answers to what's going to happen in the in the next few days, next few weeks, whatever their future timeline is, they already know what's going to happen at the same time. It's really interesting and really weird. And I cannot wait to talk about the connection between them and El Duce. Just so you guys know,
Yeah, yeah.
because I know. Oh, are we in spoilers already? Yay,
Spoilers,
spoilers!
spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Spoilers
Okay, go.
ahead. We're gonna spoil the hell out this
Cool.
movie. I loved all your
Okay.
points, Toots. It's time to get.
Yay.
It's time to get into it. The
Let's
part we
go.
all love to do, the plot. Let's get into it. So, as Toots just mentioned, our boys get into some riffraff with the titular Russian gang, who's not the only gang they're fighting this film. William Dafoe figures out exactly what happened. They just show up to they turn themselves in to the police station, and they're pretty much made heroes. They're on the news. These saints, they're already like vigilantes, who just everyone just
Right.
seemed to accept because they stood up for themselves and defeated the gangbangers, or the not gangbangers but the gangsters. They're in
The
church. You
Bob.
mentioned the mob, the Russian mob. They have this like joint epiphany of their true calling, which is what exactly? Which is to smite evil wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe was there. And throughout the rest of the film, it's almost told like Rashomon style, if that makes sense. Whereas like William Dafoe is following their footsteps, so you never see it happen, right? You only see what William Dafoe's interpretation of the
I
events
love that, by the way.
happen.
I love that he does it that way.
You
That
know
he
what I
sets
mean?
up the crime and he doesn't set up the actual action of the crime. I
So
actually
you
love that he does
still
that.
don't know exactly what happened. It keeps because you're it's an unreliable narrator. You know what I mean? So I just love the function of this film, and I want to just talk plot, just open film, open source. Let's just talk about your feelings about the plot. Are these guys supernatural? Are they not? Hit me. I just want to hear you guys' ideas about this stuff.
Did they?
Okay, since we already put out the warning for spoilers, I want to say that I don't know much about their supernatural abilities. I do know that their calling was already predetermined by their blood. When El Duce discovers that these boys are his own sons, by discovering that they're saying the family prayer at the end of the movie. I'm so glad you already made the warning for spoilers, so here it is. Um, this is the very first time that I actually discovered, oh shit, like they already knew this was already planned. This was already a predetermined destiny for them. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Which is why it came so natural to them, and why it was so easy for them, not easy for them to kill. Obviously it wasn't, because on top of blessing those that they killed, they asked for forgiveness. That's why they went to confession. You know what I mean? Like there's still some morality in there, believe it or not, as monstrous as these murders were. But I find the best parts of the movie are the conflict between themselves and their dad, which they don't even know exists, which is really cool. The shootout scene was brutal. The last
Oh
scene
yeah,
where they're shooting at each other, they're just going at it with each other. They're literally trying actively to kill their father.
but
Their
they
father
can't.
is literally actively trying to kill his sons, and he has no idea. They have no idea that this is actually happening in real life. They're going back and forth. All they know, all both sides know, is that I'm killing the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Blows me away. Blows me away. Both sides are actively trying to kill the bad guy. So who's the bad guy? And that's kind of what makes my favorite part of this entire movie, the end scene where they're praying over Rocco's body, because Rocco ends up passing away. He ends up getting killed. Um, and they're praying over his body, and Dad walks in, and they hear the gun click because he's putting it away and he's just trying to put the safety on. Immediately they turn around and they throw their guns in his face, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna fucking shoot you." As soon as they see him, they already recognize him before he even starts speaking. They put the gun away, and it's like, dude, oh shit, Dad, what's up? It's really weird. It's
It,
so weird the way it's done. I guess if you would look at it today, oh, that happened too quick. It shouldn't have happened that quick. But honestly, I think the setup was so perfect. That scene was very chilling, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such the best part of the plot to me is the dynamic between the boys and El Duce. And I know it doesn't happen till later in the film, but man, is it good.
And just to tie where I'm coming from with the supernatural ability is that I noticed that after the baptism, the jail baptism, they start doing things where they shouldn't have been able to do. I want to talk about my favorite scene of the film, which is their first night out as the Saints in the masks, breaking into that hotel room where that mob scene is going on, and they're in with their fucking rope. You gotta have rope, right? They're in the ducks, and they're arguing with each other and tussling in the ducks. Dog. It is so stupid. And these guys, mind you, from the narration of William Dafoe, it may have happened completely differently. These dudes break out of the duct, the element of surprise, get caught in the rope, dangle upside down, and start matrix shooting the entire room in perfect synchronization.
So good.
That's unhuman, dog. That doesn't work out that way. They would have died, dog. If this was a normal Martin Scorsese, one of them would at least got clipped. It was perfect precision. And even after that, when they go into the strip bar, you know what I mean? And they just go and clear that spot out. And it's all told by William Dafoe's, kind of vision. But then you go into, like, you were talking about El Duce, who they had hemmed up like he was Hannibal Lecter because he was so proficient at killing mobsters. Like you said, the powers of the father being bestowed upon the children. He was unstoppable to the point where they just had to lock him away for 30 years because he was too good. And he started going after the people who hired him. And he was unstoppable. And you start to feel like these kids are unstoppable. And they escape the most ridiculous situations. Like you mentioned, the death of Rocco. These guys were dead to rights, tied up in a mob basement, surrounded by goons. That they should have not survived that situation, but they were blessed by God. They were their whole bloodline was blessed by God to be avenging angels. So there's this element of supernatural. It's an element of divine intervention. I won't say supernatural. There's an element
For
of
sure.
divine intervention in
For
everything
sure
they
that.
do. Okay, we're talking spoilers. Just my last thing I want to say. They're in the courtroom. They gangland execute the main boss, and the next scene is them inside of a hotel talking about their constitution. How'd they get out of there? How did the cops not catch them? How are these guys just
The
not
cops
in
were in
jail?
on it.
The
The
cops
cops were
were
in on
in
it.
on it. So
Yeah, the cops were in on it
yeah,
easily.
these
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
guys are
Do you remember the scene where the guy pulls the fire alarm? That's a
the cop.
detective.
That's one of the detectives.
Yeah, that's a
So
detective pulling the fire alarm.
so these guys are protected
Yeah,
by
they're
man and
protected
God.
by the law.
Yeah, but
So they are technically superheroes. They're Batman.
they're Batman. They're
You
the
know?
Punisher. That's all I'm saying.
They're the Punisher. Yeah.
They're definitely protected vigilantes. And, Mike, to your point about superheroes, divine intervention, I don't know what Troy Duffy.
Troy
One of
Duffy,
them's
I
a
Troy.
think.
Star Wars. One of them's close to a Star Wars name, which is why it's confused in
Oh,
my
saw
head.
love. Man.
It'd be great. Um, um, I don't know what his vision was trying to say. Was it divine intervention? I'm assuming so. Saints, the divine intervention there, sure. Was it superhero-y? I don't know, or if it's just dumb luck. Cool. I will say that to the point of William Dafoe's character, and this is what I think makes it a super interesting movie, is if you take out his narration of events, things can become way more serious and way more downtrodden and way less ethical real quick.
Yeah.
So when we get to the end, um, when Defoe's in the church delivering his
Good
confession,
scene. Good
the,
scene.
it's a needed scene because that's Duffy
Yes.
telling us, the audience, what, hey, this is how I want you to feel about this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you could be left confused, going, what am I supposed to be
The
thinking here? And thus, which could get a lot of people in trouble with something like this. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Talking God, divine intervention, saints, killing people, all the hyper violence that was going on. So, Diablo. Diablo. Defoe's character, is a needed entity for this film and for the actions of the saints to even be deemed uh, uh,
Justifiable.
justifiable to begin with. And yeah, yeah. So
That's an excellent point. And you bring up another one of my favorite scenes is the the confessional scene.
Please tell me this is next.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
just going by what I remember from the docket. I kind of hope. Yes, there was
there
a
was a
firefight.
firefight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
I'm
help
so
myself.
happy we're here.
I
I'm
couldn't help
so happy we're
myself,
here.
which is
Oh my
the
God.
best scene of the film. And
I so want to talk about Willem Dafoe and yes, the
yes,
last shootout.
so there's two
Yes.
characters that I feel we would do a disservice to this episode if we didn't give their time. One is Rocco. One is William Dafoe's character. His name escapes me for right now. But let's start with William Dafoe. He is such a complex character in this film. And like Wash was saying, he is our
Paul
almost like
Schmecker.
Paul Schmecker, Detective Schmecker.
Schmecker.
Just a mystery of a human. Subtly flamboyant, sharp as a tack, has his own moral code, which is honestly you see him shaken as he starts to follow the saints through their. Some would see it as avenging angels. Some would see it as massacre. Because mind you, these guys aren't going after the saints. The saints are hunting them. The saints are going to their businesses. The saints are going into their meetings and murdering them in cold blood. So going to Wash's point that outside of the lens of the sympathetic Schmecker, this could be a horror movie. This could be like a thriller, based upon how these guys are operating, and it's all about your point of view. And I think once again, it's kind of like the cringy, but honestly, it tells you how to feel at the absolute end of the film, where they're doing the interviews. I hate, one person says, I hate the Saints. They make it so I can't go outside. The other guy's like, I want to be a Saint. I'm down. A lot of people no comment. So it's like William Dafoe's character is us trying to digest what's going on.
And I don't
That
know
end
about
credit
Los
scene was brilliant, by
Yeah.
the
I
way.
don't know about Los Angeles, but in Chicago, we had the Guardian Angels growing up. Same
Mm-hmm.
type of deal. And it's not a vigilante organization, it's a community organization, but they're there to keep the streets safe, per se. But it can also sometimes be done in numbers. Thus, it's kind of looked at as, man, it's kind of a forceful piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
Question mark. And so you have that there, that tension there. So
Yeah, you make a good
it
point.
was.
It's almost like a very thin line between being a vigilante and being a murderer. Because these guys aren't clocking them upside the head with a batarang and sending them to jail. Everyone's dead. Dude, they're killing people. So that's where the line blurs. And it's like, is this justifiable or not? And William Dafoe wrestles with that the entire film until the very end where he decides, no, these guys are doing the right thing.
And I think about it from what if it had ended in a much different way? Just the entire movie stays the same, except for at the end, the Saints die in a bloody shootout against the cops, and the cops are shown as heroes of Boston.
Or the
Doesn't
same.
that change the feeling of everything you just watched without that brilliant Defoe?
It's interesting because the other swing of that is that they're killed in cold blood by the cops and made martyrs. Now we have a whole, like you back to your Hell's Angels, right? Back to
You have a
your
bunch of them.
Guardian Angels. Now you have entire squadrons of Boondock Saints
They need
for
to
the
be in
down
every
for the
city.
cause.
Sure.
They need to be in every city,
For sure.
right?
I
So
was
it's a
like a little violent for
little
every
crazy.
city, don't you
That's a little.
think?
That's just the purge, dog. That's just the purge.
No, what that is people being fed up with getting mugged and getting their cars broken into. And it's so interesting that that end credit scene, like I said, was super brilliant because It almost felt very raw, and some of those interviews, those are good actors because it
Yeah,
felt really
felt
real.
real.
You know what I mean? So what makes it so interesting and why I think the film would float well today is because those are the arguments we're having now. Do you listen to yourself? Listen to yourself. You sound crazy. Those are the same fucking arguments we're having today over
Yeah,
pettiness, over petty things. This isn't even about a life or death situation. This is what we sound like today. This movie was an interesting premonition as to what's actually going on in today's society. And this movie was made before 9/11, mind you. It was made
before the turn.
before our very first realistic tragic event that happened on our homeland, like where we actually felt for the first time in a very long time in generations, I'm not safe. I'm not safe at
Unsafe.
home.
Yeah,
So this isn't even this movie almost like predicted the human nature of what the way we were going to argue with each other, and how, like, the one that got me honestly was listen to yourself. The guys on the basketball court,
yeah. There
hearing
are.
that, listen to yourself. Do you hear yourself? You sound like a sissy or whatever he says. But goodness, goodness, those arguments were so realistic and so relatable. Um, and what I wanted to add to that, but I wanted to go back to Willem Dafoe because
Yeah,
it kind of fascinates me just a little bit. Actually, a lot of bit. First of all, a lot of Green Gobby vibes. I don't know. Is
very
it just
early
me?
Green Goblin.
A ton of
Very
Green
early
Goblin
Green
vibe.
Gobby.
Early
Yeah.
Green Goblin.
Bro.
Very good call out.
Okay.
But
Okay.
is it
Very good call out.
Tons. Okay.
But is it Green Goblin, or is it just you see Green Goblin in William Dafoe in everything he does?
See,
Like,
here's the
I think it's
thing.
a little bit of both.
Here's the thing about
I
William
think
Dafoe.
it's a little bit of both.
Here's the thing about William Dafoe. This man is born to play green villains because I'm getting Joker vibes out of this.
he's
Out of this
amazing.
performance, where he's like,
He's
I want a cream bagel, extra cream cheese. He's giving out.
But here's the thing. He was also barely gay. There was there was the implication that he was that way. Nobody said a word. It's not like the guys were like, look at this guy, or you know what I mean? There was
They
nothing
were.
of that.
They kind of gave him
There
some
was
looks.
there was
And
They
he
did,
was
but that's Boston. Boston thinks everyone's gay until they're not.
what?
So I don't know. I didn't take it that way. Boston thinks look at this faggot. You know what I mean? And we're probably
Bro,
gonna have to
what the
bleep that out. But that's
I
how
don't-
they.
I can't
That's how
edit
they are.
I'm not good enough.
Look. All right. No, obviously I'm speaking like, but that's how they are.
I
They're
understand.
very
We
like
understand.
there's an apprehensiveness. There's a brick wall that's held up between people who I don't know who you are. I don't want you around me. You're probably a little girl. You know what I mean? And I found that to be extremely perfect and very fitting for that movie because he never made an indication that that's how he was. He only started acting that way because he knew it was going to bother them.
It's
That's
interesting.
what makes it so brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting because I always found him a self-hating like homosexual.
Sorta, I suppose.
Because
Yeah.
there's multiple scenes where he's literally in bed post coitus with a man, and
Yeah,
they're snugged up,
right.
and he pops him upside his head. What are you doing? Why are you trying to snuggle with me? Get off me! There's the scene where he drops the F-bomb in the gay bar where he's chilling, where he's about to get the information. You know what I mean?
What F-bomb?
Which F-bomb?
All right, go.
February.
Uh-huh. Ooh.
Oof. And it just builds to his character. You know what I mean? And it builds to his almost mystique because he's very much in this movie. What's the name of the dude who was always chasing Sherlock Holmes? You know what I mean? Like,
Dang it.
you know what I'm talking about? He's always one step behind Holmes, and it's the constable that is always like looking at the crime scenes a second later than Holmes, and Holmes already has it all figured out. It gives me that kind of
That's
vibe.
another thing. He's confidently wrong.
Yeah,
He's confidently wrong. Like the first half of the movie, he gets it, and everybody's like, "Oh wow, how did he understand that? How did he get that? How did he know? How did he?"
he's so sharp.
And then he's so damn good, he gets it wrong and thinks he's still right until it's too late.
Oh yeah.
How did I miss this?
Okay, yeah.
How did I miss it?
this?
Yeah.
He's seeing
Yeah.
things logically where illogical things are happening. It's got to be like
Right.
because he originally thought it was like a group of people that did this, right? It could have to be like 3 or 4 guys, not just these
6
two.
guys, 2 guns.
6 guys, 2 guns, and then he did the
What if it's just one guy? What if it's just one guy and 6 guns? Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he's like, that's impossible, and he has his tantrum
He's
out
like,
front.
leave the thinking to me. Like
Leave the
he's
thinking to
very,
me.
very cocky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's very cocky.
He said, if I have to ask the Boston Police Department to do my thinking for me, you might as well put me in a body bag. He cusses him out like
Something.
this close
Yeah.
to his face.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, because he's so
Yep.
and you see him break to the point where he's drunk at you see him break throughout the movie, especially the scene where he's like, there's someone, he takes the blood, smells it, puts it to
Right
the freaking,
before he finds the figure, he's flipping out, man. He's
flipping
like
out.
stomping around. He's like, "What the fuck is going on?"
we can't use any of this. Fuck. We can't use any of this. All this blood
As
is
soon
tainted.
as he finds it, he's like, whoop.
Yeah,
Like,
and
yeah,
that's when you
I
saw
got
He's
this.
the break happen.
all right,
He
no,
broke.
I'm all right.
He's done. He's no longer a cop. Once he bodied evidence, that was it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just to
Yeah.
before we move on to the next slide, I want to talk about Rocco. I want to talk about our man Rocco. And it's funny, I was talking to Mike Prime about this film shortly before this went live, because he always calls and asks what we're going to be doing. So as I told him like a week before, hey Pops, and he called me like Wednesday or something, and he said he wasn't very happy with the film. You know what I mean? He was not. He just didn't like it. Kind of going to Toots' Boston, like sentimentality. He had that kind of sentimentality where it's like he just couldn't handle William Dafoe's character, and he really didn't like Rocco. And it's an interesting reason why. It's because Rocco was like really the instrument of a lot of their trouble. You know what I mean?
It was a catalyst.
Rocco was the catalyst of a lot of their
Easily.
when their problems really started to happen. It's because it was Rocco's intervention. Rocco losing control and killing that entire den of mob bosses when he found out he got set up. Rocco putting them on the radar of that mob boss. You know what I mean? Which causes all their problems. So Rocco, as once again, just like the Saints, charismatic, hilarious. You know what I mean? Just salt of the earth character. Extremely problematic and almost got those guys killed multiple times.
Yeah, salt of the earth is not the words I'm using for Rocco.
Hey, fuck ass, give me a beer.
Same.
I'm with Mike Prime. Like, I'm not a big fan of Rocco's character.
Rocco.
I find him like if I was out there doing stuff, he's the type of dude who's like, yeah, I don't really.
I can't have you around, bro. You're
Yeah,
blowing
I
up the
agree.
spot.
He would
like
in real life. He would not be around me either. Yep,
Yeah.
I agree with that
You're
as
blowing
well.
up the spot,
I didn't
dog.
find him. I'm the funny man, but he's not really funny. Even though the one joke was a tad bit funny, even though I don't remember it now, but I remember after he.
I can't say that joke, man.
Yeah, you can't say it. You can't say it. But
I'll have a Coke
funny.
then.
I have a Coke
I'll
then.
have a Coke then. Yeah. Oh, that's the joke. Yes, I did laugh. Sorry. At any rate, so that's what I'll say on that.
Yeah, Rocco is great, man. Rocco is the fly in the ointment. It reminds me of that Always Sunny episode where Charlie was the wild card, and you could never anticipate the wild card, and he just it's the wild card just causes chaos. And Charlie and Rocco was definitely an agent of chaos. You know what I mean? Like especially when he accidentally killed that cat, which was one of the most insane moments of the movie.
I
He's like-
love that scene. It's so.
like-
I can't believe that just fucking happened.
I can't believe that just fucking
That's
happened.
so crazy.
It seems so real.
That's crazy.
What color
That
was
was
it,
crazy.
bitch?
The only problem I have with Rocco is like there was a
Oh,
major.
shit.
That guy brought most of the cringe to the movie. Catch you on the flip side.
Catch you on the flip side.
Rocco did cause a lot of cringy moments in the movie for sure. He was the reason for that. But yeah, in real life, that man would never be anywhere near anything, any type of operation that I was trying to work with.
I've known
It would
some
never
Roccos in my life.
And it's really
You
sad because that guy was only looking for acceptance, like
all across
all
the
around.
board. Yeah, he was
he
just
was
trying to fit
only
in.
looking to be accepted. Yeah, it's kind of a sad ending.
He couldn't fit in with the mob. He really couldn't fit in with the Saints. He was just trying to
And
fit
then
in
all
somewhere.
of a sudden he was trying to do something good. He's not a good guy. So I mean that's another thing. Rocco was not the Saints.
No.
Rocco's not a good guy. He worked for the mob. He was gonna hustle and swindle and fucking cut the rug from people as many times as he could, so long as it brings him up. when he realized he couldn't do that anymore, he all of a sudden he's the good guy. I know all these guys. We can kill everybody. That's literally one of the things he says. We can kill everybody.
We can
He
kill
wasn't he wasn't in
everyone.
he wasn't in for it to make amends until he started to see what the Saints were
You
doing.
know what it
Like
was?
there's a scene in the strip club where he touches the girl's boob right as she's passed out,
What the
and
fuck are you doing?
he immediately feels conviction and he feels guilty for that, and he's like, hey, I need to make up for that. So as clueless as he
I'll
is as
tip.
how it is to make amends, yeah, I'll tip her.
I'll tip
As
her.
clueless as he is about it, he's trying. So is it a matter of him just wanting to be accepted by anybody, or was he actually trying to redeem himself?
I think it
But
was,
man, what a sad ending.
I think the turn for Rocco was where they had him be. It was for the my favorite scene, the hotel scene. He was supposed to be the assassin. They gave my man a 6 shooter with 12 bodies in the
For
room.
9 people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was like,
Yeah.
and that's where Rocco put it together. And the Saints were trying to tell him they were going to get you killed, bro. You may have taken out the main guy and maybe a couple of them, but you weren't walking out that room. Somebody was going to clip you. And he was like, nah, that's just not how this is done. You guys are talking out your ass. You don't know how this mob stuff works, bro. I know how math works. They set you up, and that's where Rocco flipped and was like you said, overly selfish. He was like, just kill them all. They double crossed me. They were going to get me killed. And
Right.
even in the deli where he was talking to those two goons who were just talking about, yeah, man, we're gonna be primo, we're gonna be made men now. They gotta know we're good fellas now. Once again, cartoonishly evil, right? And they
Yeah.
look at Rocco and say, hey, all's fair and fun, and all's fair, man. You're the funny guy, dude.
At least we got our funny guy back.
At least
Yeah,
we
at least
got
we
our
got our
funny guy
funny man
back.
back. Yeah.
Then he shot that one poor guy in the face. He shot the damn. He Everyone got clipped, but he unloaded a clip into the freaking like owner, who was probably had connections, but he wasn't like the mob boss. He didn't deserve to get shot
He only
five
did that
times in the
because
face.
the bartender was the first one who knew.
Yeah, he was
Supposedly,
like,
that's
he
what
knew
they
before
said.
we
So
did.
yeah.
The
Funny,
funny's like,
funny,
wait,
funny. It's
what
like
do you do to the
what?
bartender? Who kills the bartender?
Yeah, Rocco was out of control. You know what I'm saying?
Out of control. Out of control.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a
So
sad ending to a sad man. And in this context of this movie is hilarious and great. But like you guys said, in real life, you don't want to be friends with Rocco. Rocco's going to get you
No.
hemmed up and mixed up quick. You know what I mean? So, to Rocco, man. Here we are. The
Woo,
final
already.
verdict.
Goodness. Okay.
Let's give your final thoughts and score this bad boy 0 out of 5 rosaries. What are you going to give it? Let's start with Wash. Tell us your thoughts, my man.
final thoughts on the Boondock Saints. Violent movie, and I think that's just my age at this stage showing a little bit because it's not like it's anything too terribly crazy, especially for what we see on television today. But in the context of an hour and 40 minutes, yeah, there seemed to be quite a bit of head splatter all over. So that is one thing. As far as the story goes, story's good. I remember part two. I ironically
We don't talk
looked
about part
up,
2.
and well, ironically they're making a part three. It's in development, like I
Oh.
read, and
Oh,
according to Screen Rant, as early as like February, Sean Patrick said, yeah, this thing's being written, part three is being written, so there could be a part three. For me, I like it. Is it a cult classic for me at this stage? No, but it is a movie I wouldn't turn off if it was on. So I will give it a 3 out of 5 rosaries.
That's fair. That's honestly a very fair assessment. You know what I mean? It's it's your cup of tea, but it's not your cup of tea. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So I get that. Toots, what are your thoughts?
so I still very much love this movie. I'm very happy that I took the time to actually go back and review it again and watch it again, because um, there's no like nostalgia involved in it. To be honest, no like memories. It's just a kind of a solid movie. Um, I love the being able to look back in hindsight and understanding the realistic vigilante justice part of it, and understanding like, hey man, if this were to happen in real life, it might happen very similar to what it's happening here, which I think is really cool. Um, yeah, I wanted the only thing, yeah, like I said, aside from the cringe in the entire movie, given the timeline or given the time when it came out, uh, it could do without it, but it is what it is. Also, I want to mention the overuse of blood in the hostage scene. There's a Why were their faces completely red with blood? Like, come on, you guys. Anyway, so there's that. But as far as my verdict, I want to give it a 4 out of 5 rosaries, only because, like I said, like I think if this movie changed certain scenes and made them and alternated them to what's going on today, there isn't that many that they'd have to do that with. So yeah, 4 to 5 rosaries for me.
Very good. Very good. Once again, solid number because this movie is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. And mind you, I haven't watched this movie in years since we've watched it right now. Like Toot said, it's not really a barn burner. It's not Batman. It's not, Pirates of the Caribbean. It's not something that I got to return to every once in a while. It's just one of those movies that was excellent when I watched it. And I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this review that it reminds me of a lot of directors' first films. And one movie it really reminds me of, and that speaks to Wash's discernment that he came into it thinking it was a mob movie, but it became something different. It reminds me a lot of From Dusk Till Dawn by Robert Rodriguez, which starts
Yeah.
one way and goes the completely opposite direction. And
Have we
it's
True.
never done a review of that movie on any of
ooh,
these channels?
ooh,
What? How is
Nope,
no,
that?
not yet.
no,
Ah,
not
Not
yet,
all right,
yet.
not yet. I'll say it like that,
all
not
right. Oh,
yet. Like
sorry.
it reminds me of like Robert Rodriguez, kicking ass and taking names, and it's just a enjoyable watch anytime you watch it. It's like it can and this is the kind of movie where you're like, hey, you haven't seen Boondock Saints? Yeah, we're watching this tonight. Yeah, you haven't seen From Dusk Till Dawn? We're watching this tonight. It's that kind of
Yeah.
like it's a roller coaster ride. It gets you thinking. I love outside of the cringy moments, some moments that are just way too cartoony for me. Like I think the boss was a little overdone. You know what I mean? The main boss, like we talked about, the Salvatore,
Yeah.
Jacobo. Like that guy was a little too much. You know what I mean? But all that
I
aside,
was with my mama.
I was with
Oh.
my mama.
With
It's
my
like the most.
mama.
It's fucking Super Mario
Cooking
over here.
noche.
Yeah, it's damn Super
Yeah.
Mario over here, dog. Waha! Don't shoot me, I'm Mario. This guy's killing me, man. He's the only thing that completely takes me out the movie every single time. You take all of the fun out of the job. You know what I'm saying?
Out
Why
of the job.
is he this dry ass sandwich, dog? You know what I'm saying? So, all that aside, I didn't even get to talk about the Dutch, the El Duce, who was just this comic book character, and his sons coming together, being this force for good, quote unquote. And of course, the interview at the end just ties it like a nice little sweet bow. You know what I mean? I'm ready to get busy. That black guy at the end, I'm ready to get busy.
At the end, I'm ready to get busy.
I'm ready to get busy. I don't
Hell
know why he
yeah.
sticks out in my brain. But if I had to score this bad boy, I would give it. Honestly, I love this fucking movie, man. I'm nitpicking with Captain Kulo over here. Um, I got to give it a 4.5. I got to go down the middle. It's not a perfect film. It's not a perfect film. But if it's on, I will not turn it off. It's one of those where I just love watching. I used to tell you, we used to watch this over and over and over. It was just one of those that were just on in the background. And I enjoy it as much every time that I watched it. And I even told myself, like, I watched this a week ago, just on a random night. Oh, we're doing Boondock Saints. I watched it again before this episode just because I felt like watching it. It's a fun thing to have on, working on my fig pens. I cherish this movie. The sequel, not so much. We don't talk about the sequel. But this first outing by this director, I think it's as strong as any other first outing by any A-list director in Hollywood. I put this up against anybody's first outing because this is a solid attempt to, in my opinion, make a superhero movie. I think this is low-key a superhero movie. And I may that just maybe the master of the nerdiverse here talking up my neck, but those are my sentiments about maybe what was going on in the back of the head of Troy Duffy. This was a good. This episode turned out so much more in depth than I thought it was gonna be. You know what I mean? How do you guys feeling about how this episode turned out?
Good
I think it's
episode,
kind
though.
of a deep movie. Yeah, it's a good episode. I agree, for sure. By the way, the average out of us three is a 3.2. So a 3.2 rosaries out of 5.
Fair.
So there you go.
That's a
Right?
fair ass
Fair.
score.
Fair as hell.
That's
Yeah.
better than no
I agree.
rosaries.
Hey, like you
Right?
said, we ain't no saints, man. We're no
Yeah.
saints.
And shepherds we shall be.
And shepherds we
No.
shall
Yeah.
be. You know what I'm saying? But the
For
question is, do
sure.
you have the rest? Do you have the resolution to continue with with the journey? You know what I'm saying? That's the question.
Right? Right? Oh, see that's a good quote. And that's very dismissed when his dad actually comes at them with that. You have the constitution, but can you actually do you have the fortitude? Do you have the fortitude to keep doing
To
this?
keep doing this as
Because
long
if
as
you keep
God.
doing this, you're going to continue to kill people. You have to keep killing people in order to make right by the Lord. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's a crazy
I'm
thing to
telling
say.
you,
Like that's insane.
in a
Yeah.
different
That's nuts.
lens, this is a horror movie. You know what I mean? In a
Yeah,
different
this is
lens.
Terrifier.
Yeah, these guys are just
Yeah.
Jason Voorhees, punishing teenagers who fornicate and smoke weed. These are the same.
Oh, that's
It's
funny.
the same kind of modus operandi, but
Right.
written in a different lens. Oh
That's
man,
good. That was
this
fun.
has been an
That was
excellent
fun. Thank you.
episode of MOTN reviews for 1999's own Boondock Saints. Always remember, Nerdiverse, if you like this content and you enjoy this content, like our content, please, on all social media outlets. May that be on Spotify where you're listening to the audio of this version. May it be on YouTube where you're watching us and watching the live episode. Or may it be anywhere you're checking this out. Please like the content. Comment, what's your favorite scene of this movie? Are we completely wrong about Rocco? Was he a saint? I don't know. Let us know. We love to hear from you. And lastly, subscribe to our channel so that you're made aware of all of our upcoming content. This is evergreen content. You should be able to watch this 20 years from now and still glean all the same points that we've made today. Mind you, by 20 years from now, my brain will be inside of a robot. Wash will have ascended to space. And Toots will be
I
running
will
her.
be on a starship.
Wash will be ascended to space on a starship. And Toots will be like the prime minister of a small country. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for
A
sure.
small but
Yeah.
feisty country. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
we may have moved
Okay.
on, but MOTN, 1,000 years MOTN. Any final
1,000 years MOTN.
1,000 years MOTN. Any final thoughts, people, before we close this bad boy out?
Thanks for having me. Been a blast. Always a good time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, Nerdiverse. This has been MOTN Reviews. I've, of course, been your host, Mike G. And MOTN, out. We are out of here.